Welcome to the Landmark Theater's Q&A podcast. In this podcast, you will hear a discussion with screenwriter Phyllis Nagy from the film Carol, moderated by film critic David Poland, recorded at the Landmark West LA.
One of the fascinating parts of this is that you actually knew Ms. Highsmith. Could you tell that story a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Strike you down dead for calling her Mrs.
I'm having a stumbling night, apparently.
Yeah. I met her when I worked as a researcher at the New York Times in the late 80s. And one of the magazine editors wanted to hire someone to do it, walking toward Greenwood Cemetery. And their first choice wasn't available, so I suggested Pat Highsmith, who, as far as anyone knew, was holed up in some mountain in Switzerland, but she happened to be in New York at the time. She said yes, so they sent me as a reward or a punishment, not sure which. And that's how we met, going to a cemetery together, quite apt.
And so how long was that friendship?
It was the last decade or so of her life. So she was in her 60s when I met her, and died in her mid-70s.
And one of my favorite stories that you told me, since I've had a chance to chat with you about it before, is that you actually did not read Carol until after her passing.
Yeah, that's true. She republished it in 1990, late 1990, under her own name, finally. And she retitled it Carol. And we talked about it a bit then, but she spoke about it in such a personal way, and in, to be truthful, a semi-disparaging way, and encouraged me to read other of her books. Also, I didn't know if I read it and I said something stupid, if she would chop off my head, or God knows what she might have done. So I put it off until after she died.
And when did the journey to making it a film begin?
Well, that happened a couple of years after she died, in 1997. I was hired to do an adaptation of this, and if I had known it was going to be 18 years, I might have thought twice, but it seems to have worked out a bit.
You're kind of the opposite of the normal Hollywood story, which is a writer who gets fired every 20 minutes, and they bring somebody else on. You just couldn't get away from this thing.
No, I couldn't. Well, it was developed in England, and though it was largely, the development was largely paid for by Film 4, which is a British studio, the respect for writers is different there than it is here. And I suppose after I'd been with it for 6 or 7 years, no one would dare get rid of me at that point. Nonetheless, I tried to get rid of it at a certain point along the journey when the original producer lost the rights to the book. And I thought that was it. Gone, dead. Not a waste of time, because I learned how to write a screenplay on this. And I learned how to navigate many different kinds of psychopathic personalities. This is all very useful. About a year after the rights were lost, I got a call from Elizabeth Carlson, who is one of the producers on this now. We worked together, along with Christine Vachon, on another project. And she said, "Hey, I got the rights to the book. Let's make a movie." And I said, "Great, no. Find another writer. I'm sure you can find someone perfectly nice." And it took her a year to convince me to jump back in and not to be afraid of another false start or 3 or 10. And a couple of years later, Todd came on board after another couple of false starts, and after Kate was attached.
Yeah, Kate kind of became one of the drivers of this as it got to the last 5 years of it, I guess.
Yeah, she's pretty remarkable, and so I thought, well, okay, we'll hang out.
So how many dead versions of this were there in all those years? Were there 8 or 10 or 12 or?
I've got to start making a list. I keep remembering different people who temporarily flirted with it or blew through, and now I'm starting to make a list, but there were quite a few, and quite a few potential investors that we did furious tap dances for, but then in the end, the movie, driven by two women and arguably a third big supporting role, really just did not turn anyone on. Lesbianism wasn't the issue. It was female leads.
So, did you believe when it finally came together that it was going to actually start? There would actually be a first day?
No, not really. I was always waiting for some catastrophe to strike. But then, when they started doing scouts and settled on a city in which to shoot it, I thought we're pretty safe. And a cast.
And one of the things I think about the movie that's resonating so much is that it does seem remarkably, after all that waiting, very much of the moment. Does it feel that way to you?
It does, but it's difficult when you're in the middle of it. Clearly it does to many people, but it always feels at the moment to those of us who made it in some way. Otherwise, we wouldn't be out here, doing Q&As, or we'd be home with our heads under a blanket, probably. But yeah, it does feel that way.
We were talking before we came out here that you saw the box office today, I guess, and you've now got proof that somebody's interested in this movie. Had a good day yesterday and today.
Yeah, because I only have 10 friends. They can't be buying all these tickets.
Can you tell us a little bit about writing and rewriting? Many versions, if there is a version that you have to let go that somehow you regret?
That's an interesting question. I think there actually haven't been many versions of the script. There have been a lot of years, but the core of the script has always been there, and there are things in this final version that were there in 1997. Over the years, what happens is you mature two things. I was on this long enough so that I matured as a writer, so you get other interests and you see other things. And I had to accommodate a number of people along the way, some of whom had really great ideas and some of whom did not. But what you learn is that there's always something to be gained by flirting with a bad idea. Within that, you find a good idea. And when Todd came on board, I had a last go at it based on the things that really interested him in the existing script. But when you shoot a film like this on a low budget, you don't go into production with a script that's not finished, pretty much. There are always changes on set, little things here and there. But it was pretty much done.
How'd you know not to give up?
Well, it was so boring waiting around for anything to happen with it, that it wasn't constant pressure. I think if it had been all those years of being with a producer who needed me to rewrite everything in the script all the time, I would have walked a long time ago. But also, Pat Highsmith was my friend, and I felt a huge responsibility to make sure that what I felt was the tone and intention of her novel be honored. So it really was worth my while to stay.
And you were doing other things also. I mean, you were winning awards for other kinds of writing along the way.
Yeah, I was working. Yeah.
The question is whether Carol was a little bit more fragile in the screenplay than she was in the book.
I actually think she's more unstable in the book. This is my interpretation of that. I think what probably happens is it's a combination of what happens in the filmmaking process. She's certainly quite moody and melancholy in the script for good reason, which Therese is not immediately aware of. But I think something happens in in the process of two actors getting together and having a certain sort of chemistry, not necessarily romantic, although they do, I think. And these things, the human interaction, actually necessarily softens the way people appear to be. And in the book, we can see her as being as hard and crystalline as we want to.
I guess the question, if you didn't hear him back, was whether it really took a man, ultimately, in the case of Todd Haynes, joining this very female group to get the movie over the hump.
Well, over the years, there have been women attached to this. And I think had it not taken such a long time for bits of financing to come together, they would have made the film with a woman as a director. That never seemed to be a problem. That said, of course, some male directors are easier to get financed than others for certain kinds of movies. And in this case, of course, Todd was thought to be a natural. I know what you mean about young male directors writing a certain sort of female lead, but I also think we have a huge history of particularly American male directors, writer-directors, from the 30s, 40s, and 50s who I think did that very, very well, and I wish we could get back to more of that kind of Lubitsch and Preston Sturges and Billy Wilder and company. That would suit me just fine.
When was Rooney Mara brought on?
Rooney Mara was offered the script a couple of years or a year and a half before Todd came on board. Kate was on board. But Rooney had just finished doing a long series of grueling jobs, culminating with the Dragon Tattoo movie. And she was absolutely exhausted. And even though Kate was on board, she thought she didn't know what the hell she could do or give, so she passed. And it took, so much more time to get it off the ground that luckily by the time Todd came back, we re-offered it to her, and she said yes. So that was a fortunate thing.
Was the script blocked during production, or did you make changes?
I was there for the bit of the shooting where I thought if something was going to require attention, this is what it would be. And there was a little bit of losing locations, or in one case, I think an actor got sick, or not one of the leads, but anything like that that affects something. I primarily was there to make sure that there was a way that we could work around that. Or sometimes I would have to say to Todd at the request of the producers, you can lose that. If you would listen to me, he was very sweet about and very protective of every aspect of the film, including the script. And Kate and I would kind of fiddle around with some things, but not very much, because really we had 34, 35 days, something like that, in which to shoot it.
Was the dialogue as sparse in the script as it was ultimately in the movie?
I mean, pretty much. I took a look, because I know, people are talking about that. I looked at the script today, and I think what it is that the scenes, particularly scenes like the restaurant, their first lunch, all of those scenes where they're getting to know each other, lend themselves naturally to all of that kind of coded behavior. And so rather than a lot of the dialogue being stripped away, because it wasn't, it actually is full of dialogue, which is another thing that is great that for a screenplay. But that gives them the opportunity to play with all that. And the editing, of course, you can extend a pause as long as you like, as long as it will play. So I think it's a combination of everyone being very keyed in to exactly what that kind of relationship, that dance is, that makes that work.
Let's say it's 10 years from now, and the film works out to be exactly what you wanted. What do you think the impact of this film will be on film history, on women, whatever?
Well, this is like one of those fantasy baseball questions. Build your perfect team. Really, I think that it has the potential, well, that's safe, it has the potential to open the door to a certain kind of adult movie led by women being made, which would be great. I hope it proves that it makes some money, and it proves that people will go and see things that are deliberate, which are carefully paced, which are films not driven by anything but subtlety and delicacy. Wouldn't that be something? I do think, because also it is part of Todd's, what is the word I'm looking for? Part of his that of course it will be studied and forever dissected, and that's a great thing. And I also think it'll be very important for more mainstream gay, lesbian cinema, probably, I hope. And I hope people are endlessly fascinated by it.
Is that a tough area, do you feel? I mean, we're talking a lot these days about women and people of color and the limitations in the film business. Is the gay culture and film business narrowed these days, do you think?
Yeah, I do, but I also think that if a film like this, which is incredibly political by absolutely not having an agenda, can have an impact, then that might have a very interesting effect on the kinds of films that people start wanting to make. We'll see.
Just as a follow-up.
Oh, we got a follow-up.
What the genius of this film is that you capture a depth of psychological realism and interest and conversation that is just not found in the typical male movie. And to me, it's a breakthrough, and I'm wondering if you think this can continue.
We got the G word again.
Yeah. Every so often there's a film, right? I can't think of one right now, but every 4 or 5 years, there's an adult film that values psychological realism, nuance, texture, all of those things, and people start talking about how it might change the nature of the game, push the envelope, and then it doesn't. What might be different about this, hopefully, is that it's led by arguably 2 big movie stars. And what really starts changing the conversation is when other big movie stars decide to be in movies like this. And that's what I hope happens, really.
This is not Blue is the Warmest Color, however, it is kind of surprisingly, I think, almost sensual as a film.
Yeah, it is. And also that it was directed by, it's like, okay guys, you can do this. Todd Haynes is a man, and it's a film that I think I was reading one review that said it almost entirely escapes the male gaze, which is remarkable about this. And partially it's because, Todd, we all joke, he's an honorary woman. he's all male. But listen, there were like 300 of us surrounding him, making sure in the nicest possible way that that never happened. nor do I think it would have, you know.
But almost all of his work is about women.
Almost all of his work is about women, but not all of his work is always led by. There was a split focus in Far From Heaven, right? It's not always true that almost virtually all of his collaborators are women. So I feel that this had an interesting and good effect, and has spurred him on to even want to work with scripts that aren't his own necessarily.
Well, thank you for coming out and being the genius that you are. Thank you all for sticking around.
Dearest, there are no accidents, and no explanation I offer will satisfy you. I like the hat. You seek resolutions because you're young, but you will understand this one day.
How many times have you been in love?
You're always the most beautiful woman in the room.
Therese Belavet.
Carol. Tell me you know what you're doing.
I never did.
And then it changed.
She's still my wife. I love her.
I can't help you with that.
It shouldn't be like this.
I know. If he can't have me, I can't see my daughter. Everything comes full circle. We gave each other the most breathtaking of gifts.